The crystal towers of Nexara stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the highest tower, the Galactic Hegemony Council gathered for what they believed would be a simple decision. 847 species sat in their floating chairs, each one representing worlds beyond counting. Council leader Vorthak raised his four arms. His spider-like body clicked as he moved to the center of the great chamber. The room fell silent. Vorthak had called this meeting for one purpose only. Fellow beings of the galaxy, Vorthak began, his voice echoing through the chamber. We face a problem. A small problem, but one that grows each day. The hologram above the chamber showed a blue and green planet, Earth. Many council members had never seen it before, but they had heard the reports, whispers of a violent species that had somehow learned to travel between stars. The humans, Vorthak continued, have become bold. They leave their world. They build colonies. They do this without asking permission from us. A low murmur ran through the chamber. Several beings nodded their heads or whatever they had instead of heads. The idea of a species acting without council approval was unthinkable. But that is not the worst part, Vorthak said. He clicked a control and the hologram changed. Now it showed human cities, human ships, human faces. Look at them. Study their history. They are a species born from violence. They fight each other constantly. Their entertainment shows war. Their children play with weapons. The chamber erupted in disgusted sounds. Clicks, roars, chirps, and groans filled the air. The very idea of a violent species reaching the stars horrified them all. In a small cage near the back of the chamber, a young human sat quietly. His name was Jiho Kim. He had been captured 3 months ago when his diplomatic ship tried to make contact with a council patrol. Now he served as what Vorthak called a specimen, living proof of human nature. Jiho listened to Vorthak's words with calm eyes. He showed no anger, no fear. This bothered some of the council members who glanced his way. Their own planet bears the scars of their wars, Vorthak went on. Dead zones where nothing grows. Poisoned waters. Cities built on the bones of older cities they destroyed. This is what they bring to space. The hologram now showed images that made the council recoil. Battlefields from human history. Weapons of terrible power. The mushroom clouds of nuclear explosions. If we allow them to continue, Vorthak said, they will bring this violence to peaceful worlds. They will corrupt other species. They will turn our galaxy into a battlefield. Representative Quelnix of the Harmonious Collective stood up. Her blue flower-like form swayed as she spoke. What do you propose we do, Council Leader? Vorthak's eyes gleamed. We vote. We decide to end this threat before it spreads. A cleansing operation. Quick and merciful. The word cleansing sent a chill through some of the younger council members. They had heard of such operations before. Entire species wiped out in hours. Worlds left empty and clean. How long would this take? Asked Representative Zormand of the Crystal Mines. 72 standard hours, Vorthak replied. Our fleets are ready. 3 massive battle groups, 1 for their homeworld, 1 for their colony on the red planet they call Mars, 1 for their expedition ship in the outer regions. Representative Ty Mellis of the Peaceful Gardens raised a tentacle. Have we tried talking to them? Perhaps they can be taught better ways. Vorthak gestured toward Jiho's cage. We have one of them here. 3 months I have tried to teach him. 3 months I have shown him our peaceful ways. Watch. Vorthak walked to the cage and opened it. Jiho stood up slowly. He was not chained or restrained in any way. He simply stayed in his cage by choice. Human, Vorthak said. Tell the council what you have learned. Jiho looked around the chamber. His dark eyes moved from one alien face to another. When he spoke, his voice was steady and calm. I have learned that you believe peace comes from strength, Jiho said. I have learned that you believe the strong should rule the weak. I have learned that you have forgotten what real peace looks like. An angry buzz filled the chamber. Many council members rose from their chairs. How dare this primitive creature speak to them this way? But Jiho was not finished. I have also learned that you are afraid. You fear what you do not understand. You fear change. Most of all, you fear that you might be wrong. Vorthak's mandibles clicked angrily. You see? He said to the council. Even when shown kindness, even when taught wisdom, they remain defiant. They cannot be changed. Jiho stepped back into his cage and sat down. As he did, the corner of his mouth curved up in what might have been a smile. just for a moment. But several council members saw it. The vote, Vorthak declared, all in favor of the cleansing operation. Arms, tentacles, claws, and stranger appendages rose across the chamber. The voting crystals glowed green one by one. 847 green lights. Not a single red light of dissent. It is decided, Vorthak announced. The human threat ends in 72 hours. The council began to disperse. Representatives floated or walked or slithered toward the exits, already planning celebration feasts for their easy victory. None of them had ever seen a species resist the council's might. None of them imagined humans would be different. But as they left, a few of the younger members glanced back at Jiho's cage. The human sat quietly, hands folded in his lap. He looked peaceful, too peaceful for someone who had just heard his species' death sentence. Representative Meliantha of the Song Weavers paused at the chamber door. She was young for a council member, barely 200 years old. Something about the human's expression troubled her. "Human," she called out. "Are you not afraid?" Jiho looked up at her. This time his smile was clear and unmistakable. "Should I be?" The question sent a chill through Meliantha's crystalline form. She hurried from the chamber, but she could not shake the feeling that she had just witnessed something terrible. In his cage, Jiho Kim sat alone in the empty chamber. The decision was made. The fleets would launch within hours. Soon his people would face the gathered might of the galaxy. He closed his eyes and whispered a single word in Korean. Finally, the crystal towers of Nexara hummed with preparation. Ships gathered in orbit. Weapons powered up. The Council's war machine began to move. None of them knew they had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. The space around Earth had never seen anything like it. The Council's first fleet appeared in a flash of twisted light, their jump drives tearing holes in reality itself. 300 ships, each one the size of a small city. Their hulls gleamed with the dark metal that meant only one thing: death. Admiral Korvex of the Void Reapers commanded the fleet from his flagship. The bridge crew around him consisted of the galaxy's finest warriors. They had destroyed 17 species before this. Humans would be number 18. "Target analysis complete," reported his tactical officer. "Primitive nuclear missiles. Some kind of energy beam system. Nothing that can hurt us," Korvex nodded. Earth hung before them like a jewel, blue and white and helpless. The planet's defense grid looked pitiful compared to Council technology. A few space stations, some orbital platforms, ships that barely qualified as military vessels. "Open a channel," Korvex ordered. "Let them hear our terms." On Earth's surface, Commander Hyun Lee stood in the Defense Command Center deep beneath Seoul. Around him, screens showed the massive alien fleet taking position above his homeworld. His staff looked scared. Some were crying. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Kang from the communications station. "Incoming transmission." "Put it through," Hyun said. Korvex's voice boomed through the command center. "Humans of Earth, I am Admiral Korvex of the Galactic Hegemony Council. Your species has been judged unworthy. Surrender now and your death will be quick. Resist and we will make your planet burn for days." The transmission ended. Hyun's staff looked at him, waiting for orders. Some expected him to try negotiating. Others thought he might surrender to save lives. Instead, Hyun smiled. "Signal the fleet," he said calmly. "Code 77. Lieutenant Kang stared at him. "Sir, Code 77? Are you sure?" "Do it." Far from Earth, in the asteroid belt near Mars, the Council's second fleet had surrounded the red planet. Admiral Vorthak himself commanded this attack, wanting to personally oversee the destruction of humanity's first colony. The Mars settlement looked even more pathetic than Earth's defenses. A few domed cities on the surface, some mining equipment. The humans here had built their colony in the most obvious places, making them easy targets. "Begin the bombardment," Vorthak ordered. But before his ships could fire, something strange happened. The surface of Mars began to change. What had looked like mining equipment was moving, unfolding, rising from the ground. The innocent-looking domed cities opened up like flowers, revealing weapons platforms the size of skyscrapers. On the Mars colony, Dr. Mira Cho stood in what the Council believed was a civilian research station. In reality, she commanded the most heavily fortified position in human space. As the alien ships prepared to attack, she activated systems that had been hidden for decades. "Welcome to Mars," she said quietly. "I hope you brought more ships." In the outer rim of the solar system, the Council's Third Fleet had caught what they thought was a helpless human expedition. The ship called New Sol looked like a simple colony vessel, big, slow, filled with families seeking new worlds. Admiral Thresk of the Bone Crushers brought 50 of his finest ships to capture or destroy this one human vessel. It should have been the easiest part of the invasion. "Surrender your ship," Thresk broadcast. "We offer you one chance to live." On the bridge of the New Sol, Admiral Una Park listened to the alien demand. Her crew waited for her response. The ship around them looked like a peaceful colony vessel, but appearances could be deceiving. "Open a channel to all 3 fleets," Una ordered. Her communications officer hesitated. "Ma'am, all 3 fleets?" "You heard me." The transmission reached every Council ship in the solar system. Corvex above Earth, Vorthak near Mars, and Thresk in the outer system all heard the same calm voice. "Council forces," Admiral Una said. "This is Admiral Una Park of the Human Colonial Fleet. You have chosen to threaten our families. You have decided to attack our homes. You have voted to murder our children." She paused. In the silence, Council admirals exchanged glances on their bridges. This was not the terrified surrender they expected. This was unwise, Una continued. The transmission ended. On his flagship above Earth, Admiral Corvex laughed. Did they think words would save them? "Begin the attack." But as his ships moved to firing positions, something impossible happened. The space around Earth filled with new contacts. Ships appearing from behind the moon, from the shadows of asteroids, from hiding places no one had thought to check. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, voice rising in panic. "We're reading 3,000 human vessels. Where did they come from?" Corvex stared at the display. The primitive defense grid was gone, replaced by a wall of warships that had somehow hidden right under his nose. Near Mars, Vorthak watched in shock as the planet's surface continued to transform. What had looked like a small mining colony was revealing itself to be a fortress that spanned half the planet. Weapons that should not have existed were powering up, targeting his ships with precision that made his tactical computers scream warnings. In the outer system, Admiral Thresk found himself surrounded. The single colony ship had been joined by dozens of vessels that had somehow appeared without triggering any sensors. His 50 ships were now outnumbered 5-1. On Earth, Commander Hyun Lee watched the displays with satisfaction. Code 7. 7 meant one thing: stop pretending. For decades, humanity had hidden its true capabilities from any watching eyes. They had made their ships look primitive, their weapons seem weak, their defenses appear hopeless. But humans had learned from their own violent history. They knew that sometimes the best way to win a war was to make your enemy think you were weak, until it was too late for them to escape. "Signal all fleets," Hyun ordered. "Execute Plan Mongoose." Plan Mongoose had been decades in the making. Every human ship, every human station, every human colony had been preparing for this day. The day someone would be foolish enough to threaten humanity's survival. Above Earth, Admiral Corvex's flagship shuddered as weapons he had never seen before began tearing through his shields. His 300 ships found themselves fighting 3,000 human vessels that moved with impossible coordination. Near Mars, Vorthak's fleet was being systematically dismantled by weapons emerging from every crater on the planet's surface. Dr. Mira Cho had turned an entire world into a weapon, and now she was showing the Council what human engineering could really accomplish. In the outer rim, the New Sol revealed its true nature as its hull sections slid apart, to expose the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. Admiral Una Park had been waiting 30 years for someone to threaten her people. Now she would show them why that had been a mistake. The Council's invasion of human space lasted exactly 17 minutes before all 3 fleets began their retreat, but Admiral Una Park was not finished with them. As the alien ships fled in panic, she opened another channel. "Council forces," her voice followed them into the darkness. "You wanted to see what humans are truly capable of? Consider this your first lesson. Classes resume tomorrow. The galaxy would never be the same." The Council emergency session convened 12 hours after the failed invasion. Representatives from 847 species crowded into the crystal chamber, their voices creating a symphony of panic and confusion. "How did they hide so many ships?" demanded Representative Quelnix, her flower-like form trembling with fear. "Our sensors showed nothing. insisted Representative Zormand. Our intelligence reports confirmed they were primitive. Council Leader Vorthak stood at the center of the chaos, his forearms spread wide for silence. When the chamber finally quieted, he activated the holographic display. It showed the aftermath of the invasion attempt. 3 fleets, Vorthak said, his voice hollow. Nearly 400 ships, the finest warriors in the galaxy. 15% losses in 17 minutes. The numbers hit the Council like physical blows. No species had ever damaged Council forces so badly. Most surrendered without firing a shot. There must be an explanation, said Representative Temelis. Perhaps they received help from another species. Vorthak shook his head. The weapon signatures are unknown. The ship designs are completely original. The tactics... He paused, mandibles clicking nervously. The tactics suggest they knew exactly how we would attack. In his cage at the back of the chamber, Jiho Kim listened to their confusion with the same calm expression he had worn during the vote. Several council members had begun glancing his way, as if he might provide answers. Representative Meliantha of the Songweavers approached the cage. "Human," she said quietly. "How did your people hide so many ships?" Jiho looked up at her with patient eyes. "We didn't hide them. You simply saw what you expected to see." "That's impossible," snapped Representative Vextar of the Steel Dominion. "Our sensors are perfect." "Your sensors detect what they're programmed to find," Jiho replied. "Energy signatures you recognize. Hull compositions you understand. Movement patterns you've seen before." He smiled that unsettling smile again. "We made sure none of our real ships matched your expectations." Before anyone could respond, alarms began screaming throughout the chamber. Emergency lights bathed the crystal walls in pulsing red. A communications officer rushed to Vorthak's side. "Council Leader," the officer gasped. "We're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human ships are appearing everywhere." The holographic display changed to show a map of known space. Red dots began appearing throughout Council territory. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. On the mining world of Kepler Prime, the foreman Taemin Song had spent 3 years pretending to be a simple engineer. He worked alongside aliens who thought humans were good for nothing but manual labor. They never suspected that he held advanced degrees in military strategy and xenobiology. When the alarm reached Kepler Prime, Taemin calmly walked to what appeared to be a supply shed. Inside, hidden beneath false floors and disguised as mining equipment, was a complete military command center. "This is Shadow 7 to all units," he spoke into his communicator. "The dance has begun." Across the galaxy, similar messages went out. The human civilians working on alien worlds revealed their true nature. Teachers, miners, traders, researchers, all of them had been soldiers and spies, placed years in advance for this exact moment. On the trading station New Geneva, teacher Hana Yoon had spent 5 years educating alien children about human culture. The station's authorities thought she was harmless, even beneficial. Human stories and songs helped keep the alien children calm and well-behaved. But Hana's real job had been to study the station's defenses, map its structure, and identify key targets. When she received Taemin's signal, she activated hidden transmitters that had been built into the station's walls over years of maintenance work by human contractors. "Command, this is Mockingbird," she reported. "Full structural analysis complete. Ready for Phase 2. In the Mars Command Center, Dr. Mira Cho coordinated the awakening across dozens of worlds. The screens around her showed human agents revealing themselves throughout Council space. Each one had spent years in deep cover, learning alien weaknesses, mapping alien territories, earning alien trust. "Incredible," whispered her aide, Lieutenant Park. "How long has this been planned?" "Since first contact," Mira replied. "We knew someday someone would see us as a threat. We've been preparing ever since." The truth was both simpler and more complex than the Council could imagine. Humans had indeed been a violent species, but their own history had taught them valuable lessons. They had learned that the best way to prevent war was to be so thoroughly prepared for it that no one would dare start one. Every human who left Earth had 2 jobs. Their official role, trader, teacher, worker, diplomat, and their real mission, intelligence gathering and strategic positioning. On the crystal world of Nexara, maintenance worker Dongyun Bae had spent 2 years quietly installing improved systems throughout the Council's capital. The aliens had been grateful for his help. Human engineering was crude but sometimes surprisingly effective. They never realized that he had been mapping their entire infrastructure, planting monitoring devices and creating backdoors into their most secure systems. When the awakening began, Dongyun sat in a coffee shop near the Crystal Towers and activated his hidden equipment. Within minutes, he had access to Council communications, defense grids, and transportation networks. "This is Architect to all stations," he transmitted on a frequency the Council couldn't detect. "I have full system access. Ready for Phase 2. Back in the Council chamber, panic was spreading. The red dots on the holographic map had grown to thousands. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human agents revealing themselves, human ships appearing from hiding, human technology proving far more advanced than anyone had suspected. "It was all a lie," Forthak whispered. "The primitive ships, the simple weapons, the peaceful colonies, all of it was fake." Representative Quelnix turned to Jiho's cage. "You've been watching us for years, haven't you? Learning our weaknesses," Jiho nodded calmly. "We had to understand you before we could protect ourselves from you." "Protect?" roared Representative Vextar. "You've invaded our space. You've infiltrated our worlds. We've prepared for this day," Jiho corrected. "The day you would try to destroy us. We hoped it would never come, but we knew it would. Your nature makes it inevitable." Forthak's mandibles clicked furiously. "What do you want? Territory? Resources? Slaves?" For the first time since his capture, Jiho Kim stood up in his cage. His calm expression never changed, but somehow he seemed larger, more dangerous. "We want you to learn," he said simply. "Learn that strength without wisdom is just another word for weakness. Learn that peace cannot be built on fear. Learn that the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak, not rule over them." The chamber fell silent. 847 species, rulers of countless worlds, stared at a single human in a cage and felt something they had forgotten existed: shame. Phase 2 begins in 24 hours. Jiho continued. "I suggest you use that time to reconsider your definition of civilization." As if summoned by his words, the chamber's communication system activated. Admiral Una Park's voice filled the crystal halls. "Council members," she said, her tone polite but firm. "This is Admiral Park of the Human Colonial Fleet. We need to talk." The awakening was complete. Humanity had revealed its true face to the galaxy. But that face was not the monster the Council had imagined. It was the face of teachers who had come to give a very difficult lesson. Admiral Korvex's flagship limped through space, its hull scarred by weapons he still couldn't identify. Half his fleet had been destroyed in the retreat from Earth. The survivors moved in tight formation, seeking safety in numbers. "Long-range sensors clear," reported his tactical officer. No pursuit detected. Korvex allowed himself a moment of relief. The humans had let them go. Perhaps their victory had satisfied whatever savage instincts drove them. Perhaps the Council could still negotiate. That hope died when his ship's lights flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the bridge in red light. Before anyone could react, every screen on the bridge displayed the same message: "You have new mail." A video began playing. It showed a young human sitting in what appeared to be a simple room. The man looked calm, almost bored. "Hello, Admiral Korvex," the human said. "My name is Seung-O An. You don't know me, but I know everything about you." Korvex's blood turned to ice. No one outside the Council knew his name. His identity was one of the galaxy's most protected secrets. "You were born on the 7th moon of Zerion," Seung-Ho continued. "Your childhood name was Clicksnap-12, which means quick to anger in your language. You joined the Void Reapers at age 47. You've destroyed 17 species. You have 3 wives and 12 children." The bridge crew stared at the screen in horror. This was impossible. The human databases had been destroyed decades ago. There was no way they could have this information. "Your favorite food is fermented moth larvae," Seung-O went on. "You collect ancient weapons. Your greatest fear is dying forgotten. Your ship registry is VR449 Alpha 7. Your current location is Sector 43 Alpha coordinates." He read off their exact position. Korvex's tactical officer was frantically checking the sensors. "Sir, there's nothing out there." "No ships, no probes, nothing." On the screen, Seung-Ho smiled. "Oh, but there is. You just can't see me. Humans learned a long time ago that the best hunter is the one the prey never sees coming." The ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed across every console. That was your engines, Sheng-Ho explained. I've been following you for 6 hours, making small adjustments to your ship's systems. Your power core will fail in 12 minutes. Your life support will last another 30 after that. Korvex found his voice. What do you want? I want you to understand something, Sheng-Ho replied. Every member of your crew, every pilot in your fleet, every officer who gave orders to attack human space. We know all their names. We know where they live. We know their families. He paused to let that sink in. We are not coming for your territory. We are not coming for your resources. We are coming for you, personally. Each and every one of you who thought it would be fun to commit genocide. The transmission ended. Korvex's ship drifted powerless in the void. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of council ships. The retreating fleets found themselves being stalked by invisible predators who knew their every weakness. On Nexara, the council's emergency session had devolved into chaos. Representatives screamed accusations at each other while emergency reports flooded in from across their territory. Fleet Admiral Thresk is dead, announced a communications officer. His ship was found empty, drifting near the Cygnus Nebula. No signs of battle damage. Admiral Korvex's entire fleet has disappeared, called out another officer. Last transmission was a request for rescue. Then nothing. Representative Vexitar slammed his metal fist on his hovering platform. How are they finding our ships? Our military frequencies are encrypted. In his cage, Jiho Kim listened to their panic with unchanged calm. Finally, he spoke. You want to know how we're finding your ships? We built your communication systems. The chamber fell silent. 20 years ago, humans won the contract to upgrade the Council's military communications. We were so grateful for the work, so eager to prove ourselves useful. You never wondered why we bid so low. Vorthak's mandibles clicked in horror. You've been listening to everything. Everything, Jiho confirmed. Every order, every plan, every secret transmission. We know where your ships are going before their captains do. Representative Meliantha approached his cage with trembling limbs. The maintenance contracts, the construction projects, the technical consultants. All of it, Jiho said. For decades, humans have been quietly improving your technology. Fixing your computers, upgrading your ships, installing better systems. His smile was cold now. We've been so helpful. The truth was devastating. Humans hadn't just been spying on the Council. They had been building back doors into every system, every ship, every installation they touched. The galaxy's infrastructure had been compromised from within. In the outer rim, Captain Kiwan Zhang sat alone on his ship, the Incheon Ghost. His vessel was invisible to every sensor the Council possessed, a masterpiece of human stealth technology. On his screens, he watched a Council supply convoy moving through space. This is Ghost Actual to all units, he transmitted. Package delivery commencing. The supply convoy never saw him coming. One by one, their ships simply stopped working. Life support failed. Engines died. Communication systems went silent. Within an hour, 300 Council ships drifted helplessly in space. But Kiwan didn't destroy them. Instead, he did something worse. He left them alive. On the planet Kepler Prime, Taemin Song had taken control of the mining operations central computer. From his hidden command center, he accessed every Council facility in the sector. Attention Council forces, he broadcast on their emergency channel. This is the human you called a primitive laborer. I've been working here for 3 years, learning your systems, mapping your defenses. He activated a program he had been writing for months. Across 12 worlds, Council installations began shutting down. Not destroyed, simply turned off. Your mining operations are suspended, Taemin continued. Your defense grids are offline. Your transportation networks are frozen. This will continue until you learn to negotiate like civilized beings. On the trading station New Geneva, teacher Hana Yoon gathered the alien children she had taught for 5 years. They loved her stories about humans, her songs about Earth. They trusted her completely. Children, she said gently, I need you to carry a message to your parents. Tell them the human teacher says it's time for the adults to stop fighting and start talking. The children nodded eagerly. They would do anything for their favorite teacher. Within hours, parents across the station were receiving the same message from their children. The humans wanted to talk, not fight. The psychological impact was devastating. How could they fear a species that their own children loved and trusted? In the council chamber on Nexara, Representative Quelnix was reading reports with increasing horror. "They're not killing anyone," she said in confusion. "The ships they've captured, the crews are alive. Scared but alive. The installations they've taken, no one has been harmed," added Representative Zormund. "They're just waiting." Vorthak studied the tactical displays with growing dread. Red markers showed human activity throughout council space, but there were no reports of massacres, no destroyed cities, no slaughtered populations. "This is wrong," he muttered. "Species don't wage war like this. They should be destroying everything, claiming territory, enslaving populations." From his cage, Jiho's voice carried across the chamber. "You still don't understand, do you? We're not waging war. We're giving a demonstration." "A demonstration of what?" demanded Representative Vextar. "Of what happens when you threaten humanity," Jiho replied. "This isn't our full strength. This isn't even close. This is us being gentle." The chamber erupted in frightened whispers. If this was gentle, what would their full strength look like? On Earth, Admiral Una Park stood in the command center, watching reports from across the galaxy. Every council ship that had participated in the invasion had been located and neutralized. Every installation that had supported the attack was under human control. Her aide, Captain Juan, approached with the latest intelligence reports. "Ma'am, we've received surrender requests from 47 species. They're asking what terms we want for their planets." Una shook her head sadly. "They still don't get it. Send the standard reply." The standard reply was always the same. Humanity didn't want their planets. Humanity didn't want their resources or their slaves or their submission. Humanity wanted something much more difficult to give. Humanity wanted them to think. In his cage on Nexara, Jiho Kim closed his eyes and waited. The lesson was almost complete. Soon the council would be ready to hear what humanity actually wanted from them. It would be the hardest thing they had ever had to face. The truth about themselves. 6 months after the failed invasion, the crystal towers of Nexara looked different. The harsh lights had been replaced with softer ones. The intimidating architecture remained, but human banners hung alongside the council's ancient symbols. In what was once the council's supreme chamber, a very different kind of meeting was taking place. Representatives from 847 species sat in their floating chairs, but now they faced not a podium of power, but a simple table where humans and aliens worked together. Jiho Kim sat at that table, no longer in a cage but wearing the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Beside him sat Admiral Una Park, her medals replaced by the simple insignia of the Galactic Cooperation Council. Across from them, Council leader Vorthak looked smaller somehow. His forearms no longer gestured with authority. His eyes held something that had never been there before: humility. "The reconstruction of the Kepler mining facilities is complete," reported Taman Song, who now served as Director of Industrial Relations. "The workers are being trained in safety procedures that actually keep them safe, not just productive." Representative Quelnix raised a tentacle. "The human methods reduce efficiency by 12%, but reduce worker deaths by 98%, added Dr. Mira Cho, who had taken charge of workplace safety standards. "We consider that a good trade." Vorthak's mandibles clicked softly. Even 6 months later, he struggled with human priorities. "Your people could demand tribute from every world. You could claim whatever resources you want. Why do you focus on worker safety?" Admiral Una leaned forward, her expression patient. "Because that's what civilization actually means, Vorthak. Taking care of people who can't take care of themselves." The transformation hadn't been easy. When humanity revealed its true capabilities, many species had tried to surrender immediately. They offered their worlds, their resources, their populations as slaves. The concept of a powerful species that didn't want to rule others was beyond their understanding. On his homeworld of Zirion, former Admiral Corvex worked in a small garden. His hands, once used to give orders that destroyed worlds, now planted seeds and tended vegetables. The rehabilitation center looked like a pleasant resort, but Corvex knew it was really a school. The human supervisor, Una Sio, checked on his progress daily. She was patient with his questions, kind when he made mistakes, but firm about the rules. No violence, no threats, no talk of superiority or conquest. "I don't understand," Corvex said one day as he watered a row of tomatoes. "My people have always ruled through strength. It's our nature. Yuna knelt beside him and examined a plant. Strength has many forms. It takes more strength to build than to destroy, more strength to teach than to intimidate. But I destroyed 17 species, Korvek said, his voice hollow. How can growing vegetables make up for that? It can't, Yuna replied honestly. Nothing can bring back those you killed. But you can choose what kind of person you want to be from now on. She showed him how to tie a young plant to a support stake. This plant is weak now. It needs help to grow straight and strong. Someday it will feed people. That's the kind of strength that builds civilizations. Back on Nexera, the council session continued with reports from across the galaxy. Species after species was learning to operate under the new guidelines humanity had established. No slavery. No genocide. No conquest of peaceful worlds. Disputes were to be settled through negotiation, not warfare. Strong species were expected to protect and help weaker ones, not exploit them. The Bone Crushers have filed another protest, reported Captain Juan, reading from a datapad. They say the new rules are against their nature. Representative Vextar, who had once commanded the Steel Dominion's fleets, spoke up. Perhaps their nature needs to change. The chamber fell silent. 6 months ago, such words would have been unthinkable. A warrior species criticizing another warrior species for being too violent. Jiho smiled. Change is possible even for species that think it isn't. We're living proof of that. He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Images flashed by. Ancient battles, medieval wars, world wars that consumed entire continents. We were like you once, Jiho said. We thought strength meant the ability to destroy. We measured success by how many enemies we could defeat. We built weapons that could end all life on our world. The images changed to show more recent history. Peace treaties, international cooperation, the gradual elimination of poverty and disease. But we learned. It took us centuries and we almost destroyed ourselves several times. But we learned that real strength comes from helping others, not hurting them. Representative Meliantha, who had been one of the first to question the invasion, spoke softly. How did you do it? How did you change an entire species' nature? We didn't change our nature, Admiral Yuna replied. We channeled it differently. Humans are still competitive, still aggressive, still territorial. But now we compete to see who can help more people. We're aggressive about protecting the innocent. We're territorial about defending our values. She gestured to the humans working throughout the chamber. Every human you see here volunteered to spend years away from home, living among alien species, learning alien cultures. Not to spy on you, but to understand you well enough to help you become better. On the trading station New Geneva, teacher Hana Yoon continued her classes, but now she taught both human and alien children together. The curriculum had expanded beyond human stories to include the histories and cultures of dozens of species. Today we're going to learn about the crystal minds of Praxis, she told her mixed class of young beings. They were the first species to voluntarily give up warfare. Can anyone tell me why they made that choice? A young Vorthak raised one of his arms. Because they realized that fighting doesn't solve problems, it just makes bigger problems? Exactly right, Click, Hana said, using his chosen human name. And what did they do instead of fighting? A human girl named Lisa answered. They learned to talk to each other and find solutions everyone could agree on. The alien children nodded eagerly. The idea of cooperation instead of conquest was becoming natural to them, even if their parents still struggled with it. In the council chamber, the discussion had turned to the future. Plans were being made for a new kind of galactic government, one based on cooperation rather than domination. The transition will take generations, admitted philosopher Nari O, who had been assigned to oversee the cultural changes. But we've already seen remarkable progress. She displayed statistics showing declining violence across known space. Wars between species had virtually disappeared. Trade disputes were being settled through negotiation. Even pirate attacks had dropped dramatically. Fear was a powerful motivator, Nari continued, but it was also temporary. People only behave when someone is watching them, but if you can make them understand why good behavior benefits everyone, they police themselves. Representative Zormund of the Crystal Mines spoke up. The younger generations are adapting quickly. It's the older beings like ourselves who find change difficult. Vorthak nodded reluctantly. My own children ask me why we used to think conquest was honorable. I find myself unable to give them a good answer. That's progress, Jiho said gently. When you can't justify your old ways to your children, it means you're ready to embrace new ones. The session continued for hours, covering everything from trade agreements to educational standards. Every decision was made through discussion and consensus, not the old system of threats and intimidation. As the meeting ended, beings from dozens of species mingled freely. Former enemies worked together on solutions to galactic problems. Children of different species played together while their parents planned a better future. Vorthak approached Jiho as the chamber emptied. "I need to ask you something," the former council leader said. "Did you know? When you sat in that cage and heard us vote to destroy your species, did you know how it would end?" Jiho considered the question carefully. "I knew we were ready. I knew we had planned for this possibility, but I didn't know if you would be willing to learn. And if we hadn't been willing?" Jiho's expression grew sad. "Then you would have joined the 17 species that Admiral Korvax destroyed. Your worlds would be empty now, your civilizations forgotten." Vorthak shuddered at the thought. "You would have committed genocide to prevent genocide?" "If necessary," Jiho replied honestly. "But I'm glad it wasn't necessary. I'm glad you chose to learn instead." He stood and looked around the chamber where so much had changed. Every species faces the same choice eventually: grow up or grow extinct. You chose to grow up. Outside the crystal towers, the city of Nexara bustled with activity. Humans and aliens worked side by side, building a future none of them could have imagined a year ago. In a small park near the government district, former Admiral Korvax sat on a bench, feeding seeds to small bird-like creatures. Children of various species played nearby while their parents watched with satisfaction. Eunice joined him on the bench. "How are you adjusting to civilian life?" Korvax watched a young Vorthak child share his toys with a human girl. "It's harder than commanding a fleet," he admitted, "but also more rewarding." He scattered more seeds for the birds. "I spent centuries learning how to destroy. Now I'm learning how to create. It's a much more difficult skill,